So with the recent difficulty of actually getting an RTX 3080, or God forbid you want a 3090, that's even more difficult. I was able to actually get one from doing one of these notification emails, and it's a little surprising because yes, it came from a pre-built. So let's talk about how at MSRP, I was able to actually get a 3090. Let's get into it. Hey guys, Tiago with Classical Technology. If you like my content, it's going to make me very happy if you subscribe, smash that like button, hit that notification bell, leave a comment below. I want to know if you would buy a pre-built in order to get a GPU like this. So, of course, people have been going to pretty extreme means to get one of these RTX 3080s or 3090s. Now, the worst one that we can think of is going to be scalping, where people are going to be selling these GPUs at inflated prices and people buying them simply because they can't find them in stock at MSRP. So if you guys remember, a little while back, I posted a video that I was able to actually find in stock at MSRP an RTX 3090. Now, how I did this was at Best Buy. As soon as they were announced, I saw that they had these pre-built systems that you could, basically get a notification whenever it came in stock. Of course, I did this for the individual GPUs, but as you guys know, the RTX 3090 sold out extremely quickly. That's why we're having all these discussions. But my second option was actually to get it in the pre-built. Basically, this was my idea. Let's say if the RTX 3090 was in the pre-built that I would get from something like Best Buy at MSRP, that means that the GPU would be priced pretty fairly around the 1500 mark, like it should be, and not at the outrageous scalping price. Some people are charging as much as $3,000, maybe as low as $2,200, $2,300. Regardless, massive savings over trying to get it on the secondhand market, just because then you're getting it from a legitimate retailer like Best Buy, and it's going to be at MSRP. And then the system also comes with some pretty juicy specs, and it actually just arrived today. So I was actually pretty surprised at what the GPU was. I didn't know exactly what it was going to be. I knew that it wasn't going to be like an EVGA 4013 or an Asus Strix, but I was happy to see that it's at least an MSI Ventus 3X. That's a decent GPU. It's not the best of the best like the gaming trio, but at least it isn't a little bit lower tier GPU from one of the other brands. So I was actually pretty happy with that. So then to go back to basically what my plan would be, getting the GPU at MSRP at the price of this computer, which was around the $3,000, $3,100 mark. If you take away the GPU, that brings the computer down to about $1,500. And of course, I didn't really want a pre-built. I like building my own systems. So what I'm going to do is just kind of either sell the parts in the system or put in a GPU that I had, like a 2080 or something like that, and sell it as a 2080 system. Therefore, I could recoup a lot of the costs that I put into it. And even though I'm not getting the 3090 for like really cheap or anything like that, at least it's pretty close to MSRP after I sell everything else, which is a lot better than I can say for all the people getting scalped and things of that nature. Now, this isn't necessarily something I would recommend that most people do. Maybe if you want a system and you don't want to build your own, it's a good way. At least at MSRP, you're getting the system, you're not getting ripped off. I mean, look at it this way. There are people paying almost the price of the system for just the RTX 3090 because they can't find it in stock and they go a little crazy. Maybe they don't have patience. So I feel like, it's a pretty good deal considering the market. So now let's talk about the system that I actually got. Now I'm kind of used to doing, nice high-end systems with water cooling and a lot of like really fancy things. So to see a pre-built like this, especially one that has a 3090, I didn't expect too much. If you look at it right away, you see they're using like 120 millimeter liquid cooler when the case can obviously accommodate considerably more. The motherboard looks really generic, like there's not even any sort of RGB or anything like that. I believe it's like an Asus motherboard, but of course it's not any of their nicer ones. The RAM, of course, is just some like ballistics RAM. I kind of tapped it a little bit, feels like a lot of plastic. So you're definitely getting like very bare bones type of parts in a build like this. But of course, I didn't buy the system for all these components. I pretty much knew that was what was going to come. And by the way, this is a Cyber Power PC that I got at Best Buy. I knew the other components were going to be sort of like iffy quality. I really was just getting the system for the GPU and kind of strip everything out and use just the GPU. And I knew a 3090, even if it's one of the little bit bit worse ones. I mean, you can only be so bad and be a 3090. It's still an RTX 3090, still very high in demand. It's still a great GPU. And this MSI Ventus, I'm actually pretty happy because it's actually a pretty good GPU. Now, if I could actually trade it for a Founders Edition, I do have an RTX 3090 Founders Edition as well in my main system. I wanted to do a dual 3090 system with the NVLink bridge. I know SLI is basically completely dead, but it's basically just for testing and to do some videos. Maybe I would try to get on like 3D Mark, like Jay's 2 cents and Paul's Hardware tries to do by overclocking the GPUs and trying to get on the leaderboard. So it's basically for that type of stuff. I would never recommend people get 2 of these GPUs. It's really pretty much useless for most games. If you're doing content creation and rendering, maybe even like DaVinci Resolve, it certainly can take advantage of 2 powerful GPUs. So that's what I will also use it for. So it's not completely lost. But of course, I know that for gaming, it's pretty useless. In the future, not now, when 8K gaming becomes more prevalent, I think having 2 of these is going to be absolutely amazing. And I also think GPUs this powerful will definitely last for several years, because even something like a 2080 Ti, it's still a very good GPU even today. So overall, what's my opinion on buying a pre-built like this to get the GPU? I would kind of advise against it unless you really just want the GPU. It is a good way to get the GPU at MSRP, and you can sell the rest of the parts or sell the computer without the GPU and pretty much make your money back, and you're out just the cost of that 3090. It's much better than paying like a scalper for it, where you're basically getting ripped off and you're going to be paying close to the price of this entire PC anyway. But in general, I would advise you more try to build a computer yourself where you can put together higher quality parts, or at least go for like a boutique custom builder or something like that, because the components in the system with the 3090, and by the way, the rest of the specs, it's going to be an Intel 10850K, which is actually almost as good as a 10900K. Very good gaming CPU. It does have 32 gigabytes of RAM. It does have a 1 terabyte SSD. It has 2 terabytes of storage, but the part choice, aside from the RTX 3090 and maybe the CPU, everything is kind of like low-key cheap. Like even the RAM, like I said, feels a little bit plastic. The motherboard looks really generic. The case is okay, of course, but for a 3090 build, you would really want something a little bit better. And I think even for that same price, you can certainly put together a higher end system and get pretty close to that price. I would maybe get a little bit nicer RAM in there, maybe with some RGB, definitely a little bit better motherboard, maybe with something with a little more a nice aesthetic with maybe better VRM cooling. I'm actually going to test the system and see how it actually performs and kind of benchmark it. And of course, the 3090 that you get, the MSI, with that, I'm actually fairly happy with. This is a pretty good GPU, even though MSI has been in the news lately for some other reasons, but generally it's a pretty good GPU. It's definitely not the worst of the bunch. It's not the best, but it's kind of like right in the middle. So now, as I mentioned, my plan for this GPU, for this system, is going to be a dual 3090 monster build that I'm working on now. I plan to have it ready maybe by like November. A little hint, it may be a cyberpunk themed build. I'm working on it now. I actually showed a video of it. If you guys check one of my previous videos that not too far in the past, I did a little preview video of like a test build that has part of the elements that I'm going to be using in this new build. But of course, the final build, I want to make it really nice, everything really aesthetically nice. And of course, the performance, I want to try to get the most performance possible out of that system. And that's why I wanted to get this RTX 3090 to go with the Founders Edition one that I have currently. And of course, if I can find somebody to trade sort of this one for another Founders Edition, I would prefer to have 2 Founders Edition. I think it's going to look aesthetically a lot better, but in a weird way, it may look cool having 2 different 3090s as well. May go a little bit with the theme of the build, which is going to be like a cyberpunk 2077 build that certainly has a lot of these different technological combinations that aren't usual. So maybe I can make it work with the theme, but we'll see what happens. All right, guys, I just wanted to show you the system that I got. It is possible to get a 3080 or 3090 doing a pre-build. Just keep in mind, it's not going to be the greatest system unless you go boutique, but then you're going to be spending more money. But it is a way that you can get close to MSRP and RTX 3090, as long as you're kind of crafty with the rest of the system. Either you use some of the parts, or maybe you sell the parts on the secondhand market or something like that. But it's certainly a way that you can get close to MSRP for a GPU that, let's face it, is very difficult to find. And now everything I say here applies to the 3080. I would recommend almost everybody go for the 3080 if you can instead of the 3090. I'm just getting the 3090 just because of my theme build, and I want to do benchmarks. Like I said, I want to try to get on those leaderboards and get up high. So it's like a very special case, but overall, I wouldn't buy it for gaming or anything like that, the 3080 really is a much better value. But for those that want something extra spicy, the 3090 certainly is a fantastic GPU. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed. Remember to subscribe, smash that like button, and I'll see you guys on the next video.